Hi, I'm Sharon Sumner. Welcome to the Scottish Summit 2021. Today I'm going to talk to you about getting to value faster, and we really need to dive in because I've set myself a bit of a challenge today that I'm hoping you're going to enjoy. So what I'm going to talk to you about is how we use the power tools inside Microsoft Teams to get to business value as fast as possible within an organisation. So before we get started, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. So let's talk about the sponsors, because it's really important that we talk about sponsors. Without sponsors, these events could not happen. So great big round of applause for these guys up on the screen here. So we have ScriptRunner, DQ Global, Redspire, Agilisys, the wonderful Hitachi Solutions, and let's not forget the marvellous Proximo 3. So moving on, a little bit about me. I'm Sharon Sumner. If we haven't met before, lovely to meet you. If we have, great to see you again. I'm here as the founder of the Cambridge Power Platform User Group and a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. So I'm in Cambridge in the UK, and our user group's been going just over a year, and that's something that I founded in order to allow local businesses to share with each other. It's important that business success really comes from that sharing and learning and moving at the pace of technology change. Now, this is a bit of a common theme with me. So one other thing is that I never say no to a coffee. So if you're around or you want to jump on a virtual call and talk about the Power Platform, I'd love to. This is how you can get in touch with me, but I'll show you a little bit more of that at the end. So, like I say, not much time, let's get cracking. So we're going to talk about Microsoft Teams, specifically when you look at the definition of Microsoft Teams that we have up here in the pink section. We talk about workplace chat, video meetings, file storage, but really for me, the exciting part is the application integration. And it's that I want to talk about today. So this is not going to be an in-depth technical session, but what I am going to do is I'm going to show you how to use a lot of the power tools and a few others inside Microsoft Teams to get that business value out to your business users. Now, I go on about getting to value faster all the time, so much so that I'm literally writing a book about it. And it's all about the fact that while Microsoft is throwing fantastic change after change at us in this technology environment, if businesses aren't able to leverage that change, leverage that cloud investment, then they're going to fall behind. So I want to show you, first of all, how easy it is to use some of those tools. But then there are other sessions on my YouTube channel, and catch up with me, where we can talk about how to leverage fully the whole tool set of the platform inside your organization. But today, like I say, scratching the surface, we really are. So let's have a challenge. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to work through each of these workloads, which are either the Power Platform or a close relative of, that we can use within Teams to get these business functions active. So I'm going to show you in Microsoft Lists how to solve some of IT's support requirements. We're going to look at Power Apps for the HR team. We're going to do a little bit of Power BI for the finance team. We're going to look at Power Automate for QA or policy or compliance. And we're going to look at Planner and Microsoft Forms for the marketing team and pretty much everybody else in the organization. Now, the idea behind this challenge is pretty much every business has these business functions within it, or requirement for these repetitive business requirements. So these are not requirements that are necessarily unique inside every organization. And by identifying that, Microsoft's given us some ways to get there a little bit quicker. So let's work through them. So let's start with Microsoft Lists. Now, Microsoft Lists is a relative newcomer, and basically what it is a bunch of extra features on top of SharePoint Lists. So the SharePoint Lists underneath, technically, but what we've done is been able to leverage a few more of the shiny features that we can put in Microsoft Teams. So less talk, more doing. Let's jump straight in, and I'll show you how we can put this in place for the IT team. So if we go, I've set up some basic teams here for those departments that we were talking about. I'm not suggesting this is your team naming convention. And my demo is going faster than I can talk, which is kind of rare. So what we've done here is we've literally added the tab Microsoft Lists, and now it's going to give us the ability to create a list from that tab. And here you can see the templates that I was talking about on that previous slide. So in here we have the asset management, which we could use for IT and is in my list, but I don't have time to show you today. But look, These lists, if we just click on the issue tracker, they show you exactly what's inside with a demo. Now the nice thing about this is that you can see if this is what you're looking for, if this is how you want that information displayed. And there's a few more columns over here, and we can see the information of how it's going to look as it gets busy. You get to pick an icon, always a rocket with me, pretty much always blue, long story. And I'm just going to pick that and get the list to deploy. And there we are. We now have an issue tracking system inside Teams. Now it's up to you whether you deploy this inside the IT team to monitor IT issues as they've come off another system, or if you're monitoring a certain type of issue relative to hardware, software, cloud, whatever your preference. Or you could put this team, you could put this application into a global team that everybody in the organisation can raise support tickets for, and then you could add some automation on the end, or just process the list. So as you can see, I'm just adding some details, and there we go. The list is in and I'm able to interact with it. But let's assume that we want to do a little bit more, because we don't have to use the template. And this is kind of my message today. Start with the template, then customize. So once you've picked that template to create from, we can then easily customize, sneaking into the Power Apps a little bit, because it's probably my favorite app. So let's have a quick look. As you can see, back to the list, we've got our new issue there. And let me just remind you, this is what the form looked like. Now, if this is not your idea of a swanky form, then what we can do is we can just edit that. So let's jump into SharePoint, where we can use the customize forms from the Power Apps menu. This simple, literally. And what happens in the background is the Power Platform is busy tying together the list, the form, and everything you need to make this custom form happen. Now, as you can see, it starts out of the box with only the required field. So we've only got title on here, and we might not want to call it title necessarily. So let's add a couple of fields. Just let's make it a minimal form for the moment. So we're going to put in there the description and the priority. Let's change this to be the issue name, just because that makes a bit more sense, user-friendly. And I think there's a couple of other changes we could make. Let's go and make this our own. What colour should we pick? Where should we put it? Let's do it in the background. Let's make it quite funky. What can we do? Let's add some green and a little bit of the other colours just to make that green show up. So if we pop a 10 in on each of these others, it's going to come out quite dark green, I think. Oh, there it is. That's quite bright. That's not too bad at all. Okay. And the other thing we could do is we could change issue description. We could change that by type to be a wider field, and it's right there in those features. All I'm doing is publishing to SharePoint, and if we go back to the list, I tend to refresh, good practice, just to make sure we're picking it up. Now when we hit the new button, completely different experience. Oh, no, it didn't refresh. Let me just try that again. One more time for the road. When we hit the new button, let's just check we did publish that. We did. When we hit the new button, there it is. Beautiful green. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily choose green, but my point is that it's different. If we go back to the list itself and now hit new item, again, let's refresh by switching windows. We should be able to see a very funky green screen load. There it is. So my point is you can do anything with these once you've started from a list that's going to do the fundamental pieces that you need for issue tracking. So start with a template, customize. It's going to be a key message all the way through. Boom. Microsoft lists done. IT team supported. So let's get to value for the HR team, and we're going to do that with Power Apps. So the Power Apps, there's two ways that we can deal with this. So let's have a look at the new way. So this is adding Power Apps into Microsoft Teams slightly differently than we used to before. So this is Dataverse for Teams. You've probably heard all about it, and there's loads of sessions about this kind of stuff today. But let me just give you a quick view of this because it highlights how much faster the other way is. So if we add this, now this method, don't get me wrong, this is super flexible and really targeted to this specific team. It puts the app functionality only within this team though, so there are some restrictions. So what we're going to do is just use we're following the path, we're adding a Power App, we're getting it to create a Power App within Teams. That's now deployed and we can create an app right from here. Now, the difference between creating an app in Teams and creating an app in Power Apps is that an app in Teams is leveraging the new Dataverse, I'll get that right. And Dataverse is effectively, think of it as a a SQL database or any kind of database under the hood. So the power is relational data and the fact that you're saving that data into a table rather than maybe coming from a SharePoint data source, flat lists, etc. But, and this is a bit of a but when it comes to this, unless you're very quick at creating these and you understand exactly what it is you want to create from here, let me just show you the process you're going to go through. So let's say we're creating a leave request app for the HR team. So we're just going to give the app a name and it's going to save. Now what you can see is on the left hand side here, it's asking us to create a new table, and this is the way that these apps work. So we could create that table called leave request, and then we need to have a think about what leave request might have within it. So what are the fields that we're going to ask the user to fill in? So it takes us to this really nice and easy to use form designer or table designer. So we know we're going to need a date, and that's probably going to be the date that the leave is from, right? We know that we're going to need a date that the leave is going to be until. So let's say date 2, and let's set that as a date as well. So we have to, first thing, we have to go through and decide what all of those fields are that we want to use. We then need to come back to the Power App and design the form in a layout that we want to use. As you can see, it's nicely put the fields on there for us into a form, so we can move these around. But this isn't the fastest way that we can get to value for doing this. So what I'm going to show you is, oh, okay, sorry, I'll show you that. So when you're done, you do just publish it to Teams, and it is beautifully linked. And there's some great things you can do with this if you've got some time and if you know what you're doing. It just takes a little bit of training. Well, not even training, experience. And like I say, these are bound to the individual team. That's having a bit of a funky moment on the UI, but let's not worry about that. So what I want to show you is a slightly faster way of doing that. This is getting to value faster, right? So if we go back to the traditional Power Apps, and by that I mean make.powerapps.com. So if we come in here, again, we now have templates that are available to us. And what we can do is we can start from any of these templates and leverage them. So you can see there's loads of stuff in here about room booking, contacts, customer success, onboarding. So loads of these problems that we can solve that are generic to businesses. And here's one for leave request. So let's call this, this is the new leave request form. So let's call this leave request new so that we know which one it is. We're going to do it tablet so that it fits the Teams window a little bit better. And then, believe me, it is doing something. And then this template is going to deploy for us. Now, hopefully, straight away, you'll see why this would get you to value faster. Give it 2 seconds. Here we go. Okay, so if we just skip this. So already we have a front page, which we can customize. We have a leave request screen, we have a company holiday screen, we have confirmation screens, all done for you. So if you don't have any particular design requirements, here we go, or this is a great starter for you to just muck about with it a little bit. And as you can see, we can change the storage to OneDrive if we want to personalize that. And we probably will use this as a starter and maybe reconnect it and add more logic in the background. But hey, this session is about getting to value faster. And this one got us there really quickly. So if we just publish this app and then we jump back to Teams, obviously we need to make sure that it's shared properly. So we would share it with the people within the team on the assumption that we have shared it. And there's only me in this tenancy, so not really any need to share it. And we can see here all of the information about it. We know that it's called Leave Request New. So now we can just add in a tab to an existing Power App. So now if we pick Power Apps again, but this time instead of adding a Power App or creating at the bottom, we're now going to just create, or we're just going to request this Power App that we've already created called Leave Request New. Now, given the right permissions, this leave request can be available in any team because it's in the Power Platform. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can think about it. There are apps specific to a team for a function that you want to create a table for and to store. And then there are apps that could be deployed company-wide, but also be made available within teams that give you this massive head start because somebody has already done the legwork for you in terms of setting up all of those screens and getting you to value faster. So, boom, Power Apps done. HR happy. Let's move on. So now we're going to talk about the finance team. Take a small breath. So within the finance team, it's largely about data, and there's usually quite a lot of structure within the finance team. So what we can do is we can either leverage Excel spreadsheets or a program like Sage 30, as you can see listed here, D365 or Business Central, whichever one of those is deployed into the organisation fully. You know, even Xero is in here, which a smaller business will use. And I think that's part of what I'm going to show you. Or we can start from data and then connect and publish. So two ways. So let me just show you how this works. So if we switch to Power BI, which let's just jump over to Microsoft 365 and select Power BI. So now what we're going to do is have a look, and you can see here apps. So I've already added the Xero app. Now I haven't connected it to my data. I don't know you that well. But let me just show you in here. If you put in, for example, Sage, loads of connectors for different types of Sage reports already done for you. And there's not D365, let's put in Business Central. SAP is in here. You know, there's all kinds of stuff in here. Pre-connected, ready to rock, just given a connection to the data source. So if your finance team are already using these tools, now we can leverage them really, really quickly. So let's jump out of here and I'll show you the Xero one that I've already done. And what this one does nicely is it puts sample data in there, so I don't have to share with you what my cash flow is. So, and what you can see here is if we just scroll down, loads and loads of reports using sample data. Now, the nice thing about this is all you have to do is authenticate your connection into Xero, and it leverages the API of Xero to grab your data for you. But these are some really nice reports and a great set of reports that the finance team just have immediately. Now, in my experience, the issue with finance teams is that they have all of this data, but they struggle to take that 10,000 foot view of the data. So it's hard to see things like purchase orders and average days paid all in the same screen, let alone profit and loss and balance sheets as you're going on the fly, like these systems are working out for you. We tend to get to a situation with finance teams where we're taking days to run reports. Not here. So what we've got here is you can see what I'm doing is I am creating a new workspace to put this in. Now that means that I can specifically tailor it to the finance users, or we could have shared it with another user group. So having shared that application, I can now go to the Power BI tab and I can see my financials live restricted and the Xero set of reports. So if I hit save, my tab is now fully aware of that application, that Power BI application. And as you can see, here are my reports. Again, the nice thing here, if you look across the bottom, you'll see we've got paging for each of those pages of that report. Now, if we don't have Sage and we don't have Xero and all we have is a spreadsheet, let's assume that's the case, we can always come into Power BI and analyze from a sheet of data. So actually, that sheet of data is not particularly good. So let me take you to a sample data set, because that's probably going to be more like what it is you'll have in your organisation. So I'm going to load a sample data set. And this is likely to be what would be in your Excel spreadsheets. So again, similar situation. We're going to pick a couple of tables, which could be a couple of spreadsheets that are live in a team space. We're going to load those in. Now, the fun thing about Power BI is you choose what you want to see. So the data is there for you, and you don't need much of a data mindset. If you've ever created a pivot table inside Excel, or you've got some mad Excel skills, this is the tool for you. So immediately that data is pulled in, I can open this financials table and I can see there's loads of good stuff in here. So let's just have a think about the kind of stuff that we're going to want to see. So it's going to be about sales, and now the way I start is I always bring a table in so that I can see what the data looks like. So let's have a look by month, have a look at some products. Let's bring in the sales, maybe the country that was in, profitability of that's always nice to see, and maybe a segment. So and units sold. So let's pull that out and see what we've got. Okay, so we can see that we've got some nice data here. We've got sales numbers by country, everything's adding up nicely. We can jiggle this around to make it an order that makes sense to us when we want to read it. And we can start tailoring the report to easily show us some bits and pieces that we want to know. So this is good information to see in a grid, but also it would be really nice to be able to have a look at this in some other ways, and to also perhaps be able to filter this information down a smidge. So let's have a quick look at what else we can put on here. Let's start with the pie chart. I know everybody loves a pie chart. But what would make a good pie chart? Let's have a look at units sold by country. Really useful information. So now we can see that Canada at the top here looks like it's selling the most. But is that reflective of productivity? So let's have a look at, profitability. Let's look at profit by country. Interesting. Now we're starting to see a picture of the data. France is at the top. So France, if we click on the data itself, we can see that France isn't necessarily, we're going to click on Canada. So Canada isn't necessarily the most profitable. We can see that it's 20% of the profit, but France is 22. And if we click on France, it'll highlight it in both reports for us. The data on the left is also changing so that we've got specific records for France. Let's just think about then the profitability per product, because obviously this is raising the question that some products are more profitable than others. And if we take this one product, we can see the areas that it's selling in the most. So immediately we've spent less than 5 minutes with some data, and we pulled out something that's really useful. Now let's make that available to the team. So what we want to do is to publish that. Now we've already created a workspace already, which is the, this is going to ask us to save it first. So I'll just give that a name. We've got workspace that already exists, I think, called the Financial Live Restricted. So let's save it into there. If not, you can very easily create a workspace. That's not hard to do at all. And there's loads and loads of data on YouTube and other places about Power BI. I would recommend Hatful of Data, Laura Graham Brown, and there's some great people online blogging and doing videos around Power BI. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull Power BI tab again, and this time under Finance Live, now we can see our finance report, and here it is. Fantastic. So immediately I have live data, I can hit refresh, I can show it in full screen, I can jump to a browser and see it that way. And this has been restricted down to the people that belong to this channel, to this team. So, little bit of a warning there. Do think through your governance. Do think through how things are deployed before you just go willy-nilly deploying things in your organisation, especially finances and HR things. But look how easy that is just to get started. Already we have loads of reports here from the Zero subset, which could be direct to your finance system. Your other report could have been coming from sales data, and already we've got 2 or 3 reports there inside of 10 minutes. Insanely powerful and good value for a business. Boom, Power BI, done. Moving on then, let's talk about the compliance, the policy team. And we all know these people, they have versions and versions and versions of documents with all kinds of underscores on the end because it's had to go to various people for approval. How can we make that easier? Well, let's just do it. So Power Automate, ridiculously powerful. I did a video a little while ago, a few days ago, about how Power Automate is the glue behind the whole of the Power Platform. So this is the work engine. This is the processing of the data, not the capture of the data, not the display of the data, but the processing of the data. And again, loads and loads of templates. What I'm going to show you is how we can use that approval inside of the team structure. So those of you that have been playing with Power Automate for a little while now already know flow approvals potentially, and it's built in and it's built for you. But what we've now got is the ability to bring those approvals in teams. You'll like this. I like this. This is really cool. So we're just on the Power Automate tab. So we've just clicked here on Power Automate, and we can see all of these fantastic templates that we could use. If we want to get a subset of these, there's just some really cool stuff here that you can see. It's interacting with SharePoint and DevOps and Box and Gmail. But let's have a look at specifically to Teams. And Teams, again, we are interacting with Planner and timers, and what else have we got here? Power BI, we've got SharePoint, all kinds of connectors that you can see here that Teams is interacting with. Loads of stuff about adaptive cards, really great fun to play with, and loads of bits here that can get you started. I would encourage you, if you have a requirement, come and look here first, because you may be able to find something that's very close to what you need that you just then need to augment. So from our point of view, what we're looking at specifically is this approvals story. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Teams. If we go to, I think we want the compliance team, and we can see in the compliance team we have the files tab. Okay, now hopefully you all know by now that the files tab is SharePoint under the hood. So this is a SharePoint site. We're going to add a Word document to that SharePoint site. We're going to call it policy. So once we've created that document, we can now interact with that in the normal way that we would in SharePoint. Let's just put some data in here and get rid of the warnings, so that we've actually got some information in the sheet. In my experience, empty documents don't play nicely with Flow, so always put some data in even when you're testing. And you can see we don't have the options here under More. We can't actually create a flow from here. It's just not available to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop to SharePoint in the Open in SharePoint button. And here we've got them. So here we have our Power Automate and Power Apps tabs. And we're just going to create a flow. Now, oh look, there's a template for exactly what we need. We're going to request approval in Teams from an item in SharePoint. Now, as you can see, step number 1, it needs to validate that we're able to use all of these connectors. My user is called God. It used to be Goddess, but I kept misspelling it. Long story. And all we have to do is to validate that we can use those connectors for the user account. So basically, we're licensed. And look at this. If you've never written a flow before, this takes a minute to put together, okay? But it's all done for you. You can see that it's already pointing to our compliance site. It's got the list ID. It's created as a couple of boxes. What's your message? Who's your approver? Down here, it's doing some apply to each on each of the approvals, and it's working stuff out for us. Loads of legwork done, loads of time saved. There are a couple of bits that we need to fill in, and what I find is the quickest way to know which bits to fill in is to try and save it. So what we'll do is, and I'll just show you down here, a couple more bits down here, all of the if statements, all of the cases done for you. So if we look in the flow checker, and this is really important because I've left this in, even though it does trip me up, is that we can't save until we've fixed all the issues. But this one down the bottom here is going to persist, and it's telling you that I haven't provisioned the database to use flow approvals yet. And I forget that in a minute, but I left it in, like I say, because that's life, and I'm showing you a demo as it happened. So a couple of things it wanted us to be able to fill in. So one was from the get item, we want to be able to put in the title. So we want to tell the person that's approving what the document is called. So let's find title. And let's put in the assigned to. So the assigned to is an email address, but it needs to come from the input that was put at the very top of the form. So it's not going to be called assigned to. We won't find a specific assigned to because it's going to come from the item at the top, where I think we called it approval or something along those lines. I think if we were to search this list, as you can see, there's lots and lots in here. So you could scroll down and try and pick it, or you can have a look up at the top and see what it was called. But it's basically an email field. So if we look down, there it is right at the bottom for selected item, approver email. And that's the field that was put in right at the top here, where we defined it, approver email. Okay. So now if we look in the checker, we have no errors other than the database isn't created, and we're allowed to save the flow. Okay, it's going to give us the error again. It's just letting you know, which I ignored, that the database isn't yet created to be able to do the flows. So now it's as simple as coming back to SharePoint and being able to run the process. So, and I always go down here, forgive me, it used to be under More when it was Workflow. But under Power Automate, we can now see that we've actually got 2 because it's deployed out of the box sign off, which is the general approval, and the one that we asked for, which is the Teams approval. Now, the first time you run a flow, again, in the context of the user, what it's doing is asking you for your permissions and for your credentials and the fact that you're licensed to be able to use the product. And then it's going to give us those 2 things that we saw that it was asking for. So that's the message and the approver. Okay, and you can see there it's doing a nice lookup, so I don't have to worry about the fact that this is people in my organisation, as long as I roughly know who they are, what their first name is. Now, what you would expect is that in activity, where we can see the Power App, and in chat, you would expect a notification to tell you that there's something to approve. But of course, I've already forgotten to wait for the database to be deployed because I'm about getting to value faster, right? And I was going a little bit too fast at this point. So what you'll see me doing here is I jump back to the flow, and we're going to go back to the main screen of that flow because it's going to show you, and this is just in case you haven't seen this already, haven't played with flow. And what you can see is that this flow has already run. So if I look inside the flow, and while these areas down here are ticked and I can look into them, the one that I care about is the one a little bit further up where there's this exclamation mark and the red circle. This is where it had a problem. So if we click on that particular action, what we're going to see is the problem that it had. Now this down here is saying, if I just scroll across on the error itself, that the title was a null. Now, what we should have remembered, we especially coming from a SharePoint background, is that documents don't have a title. Documents have a name. So what we need to do is nip back to the flow itself in Power Automate and edit this message where we put in title and find name. So that's what we want in here. We're going to save that. FlowCheck is still telling us it hasn't been created, and I'm still going to ignore that. We can see, normally we can test a flow, right? We can rerun a flow, but for this type, we can't do that. So we're going to come back to this front screen. We can see, we can refresh all the runs. We're going to go back to the document library and we're going to rerun it. And but to do that, we are just going to jump straight into run yet another flow approval. So you can run these on top of each other. Okay, so if you wanted a couple of people to approve, but you didn't want each of them to see that they're on the approval list, then you can send separate messages. Again, we're not doing anything towards progressing the version of the document. We are not locking it out to other people, and we're not doing anything fancy on updating any statuses on the document itself. That's not to say we couldn't do that. If we want to extend it, of course we can. But this out-of-the-box approval is just to get somebody's opinion to ping them, for them to be able to message you back and say, I've seen it, it's great, or this is not good enough, whichever. And what you'll see me doing here is I'm now proving that this stage here is actively running, although it has got a retry. So at least all of the data is correct, and I switch back to Teams and see that it still isn't appearing. So the error that I'm having is simply because that database hasn't provisioned yet. So let's show you it end to end. We are going to create a new document, put some rubbish in here, go back to the document library once it's marked as saved. And I don't have the sound on here, but what happens once I hit this is a lovely little double ting, because you get a notification in chat from the Flowbot, and you also get a notification in the activity. So if we jump back to Teams, you'll be able to see both of those notifications turn up. We can see we've got, I'm already on the chat window, so you didn't see that notification, but you can see it's the one at the bottom, and in the activity, there it is. So you can see here in approvals, document 1 needs to be approved, and here are all the other approvals in that activity feed. Now, to see that same view, we're going to want to add approvals to the left-hand side of Teams. I'll show you that in just a moment. So what we can see here is that document 1 needs approving. Now, the only problem is that I don't know what document 1 is. It's just called document 1, and I don't have a way to get to it. So what you would do is just come back to this one step again, and maybe in details, let's pop the link in so that we can at least get to that item. Yeah. Now, many ways you can do this. I'm just doing the quickest thing because we're on a timeline here. And what we're going to do is just save that, jump back in, run it again, and we will see the difference in the message that's provided for us. Now, the other thing that isn't happening on this particular version is this nice message that I'm putting here isn't coming through on the card. Again, we'll just change it in Flow and that will come through. You can customize this to your heart's content. The point is that you've started with an out-of-the-box template that's done most of the legwork for you. So once again, we'll come back here and we'll see the 2 notifications appear. And if we look in chat, we can now see that it's come through as an unlinked hyperlink, but we can at least use it. So if I were to just copy this, if I can just select it, and then pop that in a new browser window, that is going to go to my document. Obviously, we want to make this a little bit more seamless, easy just to be able to click on the document and jump straight to the document. But as I said, out of the box, already done. I can add a comment. Looks great. It's got one word in it. Marvellous. And I can approve or reject. I can also cancel the request if somebody placed it in error or if I've approved it since then on a different version. So these approvals are completely down to you to manage. So again, you can see I've added it on the left hand side here. And this is really nice because this shows you approvals of all of the requests. So this is you-centric, not team-centric. So this is showing you all of your approvals throughout the organisation. So as CEO, I get approvals of documents from commercial teams, legal teams, etc. all of the time, and they all end up in the same list, which is great and really good business value. Boom, Power Automate done. Okay, we're getting there. So Planner, and I'm aware that time is marching on. So let's have a look at Planner. So now, the thing to mention about Planner is if you've used Planner on its own, really simple to use. It's kind of really colourful and really nice to be able to move things between the different boards. But the basic functionality is you have tasks, you get them done. Now, with Teams, there's always been, let's talk about other applications. So loads of stuff on the web out there where you look at the web version and then you look at the integrated version and the features are massively different. Now, that's why I put this feature list up here, because the feature list for Planner in Teams and Planner is exactly the same bar a couple of points, okay? So the parity is absolutely brilliant and this is deployed and ready right now. So Planner in Teams then, let's just show you exactly how this works. And it's got some nice features that make it more usable than Planner originally was on its own. Okay, so we're now inside Teams and we're going to add this simple tab. And this could not be any easier. This is called Tasks by Planner and To Do. The clue is in the name that we also have To Do in there, but that's not what I'm talking about today. So let's put this in for the marketing team. So we're in the marketing channel, in the general channel. And what we're doing here is we're creating a new planner. Now you can add in an existing one if you've got one, but as you can see, we've added in a new planner. And in here, straight away, exactly like in Planner itself, we can create tasks easily, we can assign them to people, and as in Planner, if you don't hit the save button, it doesn't save, so let's just do that again. So we can create tasks, assign them to people, add buckets, move things around, all of those lovely things are in here. We can very simply just bung a load of information in here, that jobs that we need to get done, and it's meant really for that mind dump. And then you can go back, as you can see I've misspelled this one, so we can go back and edit that and we get a much richer screen to do that editing in. So we've got all of this stuff in here. We can set due dates, reminder dates, start dates, priorities, and as you can see it's starting to show up on the card itself. We can add a checklist if there are sub-items to do that we can then tick off individual pieces of that checklist. And again, this is all standard Planner functionality, but it's really nice to see how dynamically and beautifully live this happens inside of Teams. Now, there's a reason why I get excited about that, and it's largely because the added element that we get on top of this data. So as you can see, I'm mucking about with this task. I don't need to hit save, I just close it and it's already saved as we went along. So what I've done is I've created a couple of planners in some of the other channels. So we've got IT tasks, we've got a to do here, and I think I also put something in one of the others. Now, if we go to tasks by planner on the left hand side, now we're getting powerful. So now we have a view of my tasks. This is me oriented at this point. This is assigned to me, but I can also break it down by which channel and which team those tasks were in. Loads of other bits that I can do to filter. I can look at important, I can look at ones that have got a date, therefore are planned. I can add a new task and this just adds a random new task, not specifically assigned to any of the other planners. This is just tasks that are living in here. And then I can use the, again, we've got some more stuff at the top where we can start moving tasks around if we had other task lists in here. And again, on the right hand side, we've got the ability to start filtering things. Oh, the tick. I'm sorry, you don't have sound. That beautiful little ting noise that gives us all a warm sense of having done something just went off. So we can have a look at completed tasks. We can use the filter over here if we look at all active. and look specifically at some lovely functionality this week, today, tomorrow, next month, this month. And this is all designed to make you more productive in your working environment. So you can see across all plans, by plan, if somebody's assigned something to you, it's going to appear in here. This has become a really useful interface, especially again if you're somebody like me that's got jobs to do across all departments. This is really fundamentally easy to use and allows me to sit here ticking boxes and getting beautiful ting noises all day, every day. So we can make the left hand side appear and disappear. It's beautifully functional. And again, we are getting stuff done. And this is what getting to value, business value, is all about for me, helping people to be more efficient and productive in their daily roles. So planner, done. Okay, Microsoft Forms. Let's get cracking because we are really running out of time now, but this one's really fast. Forms is simplicity itself. So we can use forms within Teams to create surveys, to gather views, to act on results and to share those results. Let's have a quick look. So, and I really do mean quick. So in the marketing team, we are going to jump into a tab and we're going to create a form. Now, the nice thing about this is what you're doing in this tab is you're creating the edit tab. Okay, so we are creating a form. We're not bringing in an existing one because we don't have one, and we're gonna have some opinions. Now, like I say, this is the edit tab, so this means that we can see the results and we're effectively the administrator of this. Now, this would be in the working team that's trying to push this out to the business, for example. And we're just going to do some really quick stuff in here, and let's add a field. There's more question types down there, but let's just work with these. So that will do. We don't need to have a super long. And we're going to have a look in the settings here. So you can see lots and lots of options. We can record the name of the person that gave us the response if they are inside the organisation. We can also say only one response per person so that we don't get skewed data. We can have a start date, end date. We can shuffle the questions, all three of them, if we wanted to. And again, we can say something nice at the end if we are, we're talking to people that we know internally in the organisation. So let's turn both of those on. We can make it look prettier by picking one of the out-of-the-box themes if we're not too sure about that. We can then add our own background image. Let's just get an image that probably is going to work in the background, a nice big kind of bordery thing. Perfect. So now what we're looking at is a survey that is personalised, looks kind of funky straight away. And we can preview that, and this is what the end user would see, apart from those bits at the top. So if we go back again, we also have the responses tab where we can see nobody's responded yet, but when they do, we can take it out to Excel if we want to, and we can analyse the data. So let's share this so that we can get other people to put some responses in. So if we hit the share button, we get several options. So we can embed. So if we wanted to put that in a SharePoint page, we could do that. We can get a QR code if we want to download a QR code. We can send a link, and we can also send an email, which we don't want to do that either. So if we were to go into share and just hit the copy button to get that hyperlink, to get the URL, let's scooch back to this one and copy. If we shoot over to IT, let's assume we're a member of IT as well, and we're going to go in the general, and maybe we're putting this in the all org tab or a certain group of people. We can just stick it in a post and say, hey, hey IT team. There we go. We'd love your feedback. And then we just pop the survey link in there, and it gives us a nice link to that survey. When IT click that, they'll get the experience to be able to fill that survey in, which opens it in a new window. And there we go. We can fill it in ever so easily. It looks the part. Better music. Brilliant. And we can ask for an email of that response, or we can print a PDF of ours. We've got our nice little thank you message there. And if we go back to Teams, we can see that in our version of it, in the marketing team, because we have got the edit option turned on, we've also got the ability to see the responses and the notifications for that. So we could put a Power Automate on this to do stuff when responses happen. But straight out the box, we've got a lovely little chart to see generally what's going on. We could have had 6 respondents and it would give us an average of, say, 3 stars, 5 stars, whatever people thought. We could get those specific responses out as an Excel spreadsheet and analyse them in Power BI. Lovely. So as you can see, really, really easy, and a power tool for Microsoft Teams. Boom, that's it. I'm not sure we managed it in 30 minutes. I feel like we went over a little bit, but I'll have a look in the edit and see if I can squish that down a little bit. So thank you very much for staying with me through that example. Now, my point is that the low code allows us to really progress quickly. The fact that we've got not just low code, no code, but actually templates on top of that allows us to get started really fast. But low code, no code does not mean no investment, okay? So no investment would be we just throw it out there to the business and let them do what they want with it. Now, back a few years ago, we kind of did that with Excel, and look what happened. We have Excel demons across the organisation who've done such great stuff with Excel, but nobody knows how to amend it, nobody knows how to support it. So we need to take a slightly different view at this as a platform and make sure that as a business we have the right things in place to let it grow, to help it grow. Those things are going to be citizen developers, but more people means more apps. So whether you are 20, 200 or 2,000 citizen developers in your organisation relative to the size of your company, you know, those citizen developers need support. Unsupported means unadopted. If people are just going to try and fail, then it's going to stop there. And we need people to embrace it and to understand how to change and how to make those tools powerful to your organisation. Governance is fundamental. I cannot stress this enough. We saw SharePoint sprawl when it first came out, hundreds of thousands of sites created. Understand the things that can sprawl and then put in some best practices to stop that. There's some fantastic guidance out there, and I know Andrew Welsh and Lucy Bourne are doing a session as part of this summit on how to adopt these tools well in an organisation. I honestly suggest that you attend their session or look at the Power Platform Adoption Framework, which again is an awesome document looking at how you can bring these tools into an organisation and let the organisation fly. Culture is massively important. Creating that supportive culture and learning from others. If you want a use case on that, there are loads of people that have done some great stuff. Look at Simon Owen from GSK, who had his Power Rangers really tiny team, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the organisation as the organisation helped itself help each others to brainstorm, to do small hacks, to come up with solutions to problems that they've had in the business for decades, and they can now solve easily and quickly on their own. And it's important that you understand that that continual change is happening all the time. And it is important to understand the impact, to understand the cost to the organisation of taking on the Power Platform, the Power Tools, and this integration into Microsoft Teams. Please, please, please don't just deploy it and let it run. Otherwise, you'll find that organisations like mine, you'll have gold partners coming in to tidy up for you. Better that you understand it in the first place and roll it out in a really supportive community way. Now, what I've shown you today is some seriously low code because we've leveraged templates, right? So we've got to business value faster, but that doesn't mean that's all that's in the platform. So there's way more complicated things we can do. And if any of you have seen me before on YouTube or in person, you'll see that my team even developed Pac-Man inside Power Apps. So there's some really complex stuff you can do. Or you can develop specific solutions. I've got a lovely little series on here about how you can develop some contract management, lifecycle tools, and all of those kind of things. So if you have a solution that you need developed, by all means suggest it. One of us in the community is bound to put a video out there for you to show you or give you some guiding principles on how you can get started quickly and get to that business value faster. Okay, that's me for today. Please do scan the QR code there. My deck will be out there. Join me on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Ask any time and I'll be more than happy to have a virtual cup of coffee and talk about the Power Platform with you. It's been a delight to spend some time with you. I feel like it's gone really quickly, but hopefully we've got so much achieved and you can see what is achievable with these tools. Microsoft is making it really easy. So that just leaves me to say thank you and to ask if there are any questions. Hopefully, this is a pre-recorded session. Hopefully I'm there to answer questions with you. But for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, thanks very much for taking the time to watch my video and I hope to see you soon.